What is subsurface scattering? Good question. Okay, so subsurface scattering is when light, as you know, light is what we see through what we use to see everything. So without light, we wouldn't have any shadows being cast onto an object revealing its form. Now, before we talk about light, we have to know where light sits on the radio electromagnetic spectrum and the radiation spectrum. So visible light is white light that can be divided into the colors of the rainbow as we know them. And visible light is not strong enough to pass through objects. It is not strong enough. It is just a light that reflects back. So this is the object. Let me get something for you. This is the object, and this is the light. Visible light does something like this, where gamma rays do something like this, which is why gamma rays are so scary. Radiation, it penetrates through our bone structure, it penetrates through our bodies. That's why it causes cancer, because cells are constantly dividing and changing, and when radiation comes in and interrupts that meiosis or mitosis process, whatever, it creates mutated cells. That's why we get cancer and die, along with a bunch of other problems that gamma radiation causes on us. It's a really strong kind, see it as a strong kind of light. It's not really light, but it's a really, really strong emanation of energy. Let's just think of it as that. But light isn't like that. X-rays do something like this, where they pass through some of it and reflect back through. That's why X-rays are used to see bones. They pass through flesh tissue. They pass through tissues, but not through solids. So that's why X-rays are used for bone structure and other kinds of stuff, but they're also still very, very dangerous because they pass through tissue, so they can still cause cancer. That's why they give you that lead sheet to put around your pee-pee so that you don't get cancer there as well. So there's that. Let's just remember that this is gamma, this is X, and this is, I forget the term for it, but this is visible light. It's lambda or something? I don't know. It's not lambda. So when light passes through an object and causes subsurface scattering, the only way that can happen is if the object had a level of translucency to it. So subsurface scattering, in essence, is light caught in a translucent object. Now, what the heck is a translucent object? Translucent objects are objects that are see-through. So objects that cause some light to come through. So you see this cup right here, this beautiful cup that I found on Google Images? Yes, that is the secret behind my genius, Google Images. But see this object right here? This object is not transparent, it's translucent, meaning it's letting some of the light come through, but it's got enough matter build up in there, whatever the matter is, whatever its atomic structure or material or particle. I don't know what makes this cup translucent, but it doesn't let all the light through. So if you put this weird little toy inside as well, you only see some of the light pass through. You don't see extensive detail. You don't see edge work because there isn't enough light. Light is what reveals detail to us. The more light we have, the more detail we have. So when we're talking about subsurface scattering and where to place it on an object, we have to ask ourselves, how translucent is this object? Subsurface scattering diffuses shadows and edges because of the light that's caught inside the translucent object. So we have to decide, is it a dense object? Is it made of rock or is it made of jade? Jade or any other kind of jewelry. Not jewelry, rocks, precious stones, are translucent, but they're also very dense. But subsurface scattering also happens in water as well. If you guys ever seen, where is it? Where's that picture? I found it. It's a beautiful painting of waves, and it's so majestic. Let me see if I can find it. I saved it. I totally saved it. But subsurface scattering water. Where is it? This one. There's this one, but this isn't really the one I'm talking about. So at this point, this is not right. At this point, the light passed through, and it passed through the object, but the object wasn't completely transparent. It was translucent. So some of the light is caught inside, not reflecting back through. Let me find another beautiful example of this used in paintings. Waves. Where is it? It was a beautiful painting of these waves and a boat and stuff. But it doesn't matter. The point is, you can't throw subsurface scattering on anything. It has to be an object that is translucent, and not necessarily transparent. It has to be translucent. That has to be the specific kind of object it is. So you see, it's not really an X-ray, but what's happening is that the light is coming through, revealing where this flesh and the bone structure is most dense. But out here on the extremities of the object gets less and less dense, so it has a level of transparency to it. And if we look at this object, this is some modeling texture, I guess, that they offer people, or students or something. And what's happening here is basic light, point light, rim light, ambient, probe, and specular light all turned on. So you've got secondary light over here, you've got the main light, you've got the specular, which is the reflectivity, meaning it's made of something shiny, it's not real skin, it's a sculpture. You've got the core shadows, and then you've got the ambient, I guess this one right here. That's a secondary light source too, it's the same thing. But when you turn on subsurface scattering, what happens is that the edges, which we know to be, as we know art, as we know form, we know them to be the limits of light. Edges are the limits where light can no longer, can't just really bend and illuminate. But this is the freaky thing. When subsurface scattering happens, that's when light looks like it actually bent and started reflecting the area that was supposed to be a core shadow. The part that was supposed to essentially, as we know form and form behavior, we know this area was supposed to be the darkest. What happened is that the light traveled through and didn't reflect back as soon as it hit the surface like it did with this model. This model, the light came down and reflected back. That's what light does. It just reflects back all the time. It doesn't just land and then stay there and then just sit there for a while. It doesn't do that. It doesn't pass through it completely. All it does is reflect back. At this point, light still reflects back. It still does that, but it does it past the surface because the object was transparent and translucent enough to allow the light to pass through. What causes an object to be so translucent? It could be 101 reasons. The point is that I guess it's the atomic, it's on the atomic level, the kind of matter that builds it up. If the object is translucent, it could be because of, I don't know, the kind of specific density in the molecule, not in the molecule, in the atom. So if we're talking gold, gold really can never have subsurface scattering because it's such a dense, heavy metal. But all of that is unnecessary. Don't worry about that. Don't ask why is an object transparent, just translucent. Just remember that there are certain objects that are. And if you are a character design artist, if you are responsible for a lot of character design and basically humans and animals, you know a certain number of objects or parts in the anatomy that are always going to be that kind of density built up like that. So ears, fur, all kinds of textures for cloth and material. Anything that is soft, so it could be a spell. A spell can be something that is subsurface scattering, even if like without like a spell, like plasma. You know what I mean? Like those things that we see on character design all the time, mages and stuff that they cast. Those are usually light sources in and of themselves, so you have to be very specific. All kinds of material from jewelry to armor. It really depends on the kind of object you're dealing with, but the core, where does subsurface scattering happen? The core answer to that is with translucent objects, objects that are see-through. Everyone write that back to me so I can jump on to the next point. How to retain the texture's look while still having light show underneath the surface? That's a really, really good question. Let me save that for later after I cover. Usually an object that has high micro texture, an object that has high surface texture, really coarse, really thin, grainy, they don't, I'm just going to give you the answer now, but I'll cover it later. They don't really have that high a level of subsurface scattering. What happens is that it's lessened. The more texture you have, that's the common rule. The more texture that you have, the less strong the light can be, because you have a bunch of points where the light was interrupted. So let's say you have this smooth texture and then you have this texture, and the light is coming in on an angle. All this light, nothing got in its way. There was no shadow cast, but this light cast a shadow from this little piece of texture, and this light cast a shadow from this little piece of texture. So there is this added darkening of the light's effect on the surface. So that's called, like, that's microtexture and how it lessens the reflectivity of an object. The smoother the object, the more reflective it is. So if you are still talking about this jade, let's pretend this is a jade statue. If this jade statue was all bumpy everywhere and broken, that subsurface scattering margin would be smaller and it wouldn't be so glowy. That's really the effect of subsurface scattering, is that glow. Um, well, I'm upset. I have to leave for a while. Okay. They reflect very easily. We can bounce radio waves off clouds. I love that greenish color in water, subsurface scattering. That's my next point. When we paint subsurface scattering, we have to remember all of that stuff. But how do we choose the right color to paint with? So what I was going to show you, actually, let me see if I can just find it. Instead of looking for the PSD file, because that's going to take forever. I'm not very good at organizing my files. This little picture here that I've painted, I had very little opportunity for subsurface scattering, but it's a very specific set of colors that you have to use. So when I painted this, really the way I chose the color for the subsurface scattering, I kind of cheated. But I cheated in the right way. Like, you didn't really cheat because you used the right tool, but it's still cheating because you didn't actually mix the colors. But I can mix the colors easily as well and tell you exactly how to mix the colors. When you want to cast subsurface scattering on an object, you know the object has a level of translucency to it in its extremities. So usually cartilage on an organic substance, like ears and nose, are very, very susceptible to subsurface scattering because they're really very see-through. It's made of a see-through. So if you ever looked at cartilage, it looks like this cup. Like if you ever looked at cartilage, if you've ever seen cartilage without the blood and the gore, it's just a see-through, weird little misty cup texture. But what happens, where has this gone to? Where are you? I'm not sure where it went. Did I close it? Oh, there it is. What happens when you have light shine on an object that is translucent, you have to ask yourself, because you're painting in color, what is the core color of the object? What is the actual color of the base color of the object? Is it green? Is it blue? Is it red? After you decide the base color of the object, you have to decide on the base color of the light source. If the light source has yellows in it, what happens is those yellows and that base color, that pink color, merge together to create a really warm yellow tilting color, and that's the color of that area with the light source. Why do we have to blend those two colors together? We have to blend them together because the light is trapped in here. That's the aha moment, really. You should all be saying, aha. Oh, okay. That's really the aha moment, is when we realize that light is really just trapped in this moment, in this moment of light, in this moment of light reacting, and sort of this moment of light reaction on matter. It's trapped inside. It doesn't get to reflect back as efficiently. It probably reflects back in a really lower frequency, a lowered frequency, but it's still visible light. I'm not exactly sure of the exact sciences. I don't say I'm a scientist, but I like to experiment and I like to read up on the actual sciences of something because it gives me proof for why things happen, and that way it makes me draw better because I give in to the sciences and I'm like, okay, this is how it's supposed to be done because this is how it happens in the real world. So light is trapped. Light is yellow. Light is this color right here. So every light, like light isn't really white. It's an off-white. It's a yellow. Plus the fact that our eyes see on a yellow tint. That's why when we look at stars, we have to pass them through a filter that cancels out that yellow so we can really measure their magnitude to its fullest extent. But here's the yellow. It's different grades of yellow, really, because the brightness is radiating. And then we get to complete white. And this isn't complete white. This is complete white. So you can see this is much brighter than that. So these are the three layers of light. This color mixed with the base color, the actual without light, if all the lights were turned off, what would, in that darkness, the color of that skin be? I know that's a weird question, but it would be a combination of the pinks of the skin with the reds of the blood. It's going to be a little bit of an off red. And probably a little bit of the skin tones. So a little bit, not really skin tone because animals don't have skin tones like we do, but let's just pretend this is a cat's ear. I'm going to add a little bit of a skin tone to it, more of a like a fleshy, like base color for this for the dermal layer. All right, so these colors mixed in with these colors is what causes is the color basically what you go for with the subsurface scattering. I'm going to start with the pinks of the sort of the core color, the core object's color. I'm going to throw in some yellows over top. All of this is with opacity turned on. I'm going to bring some of those pinks back on the outside. And keep mixing. I'm going to bring in some of that red. Bring in some more of that yellow. And that's really what's happening. We get layers and layers of this color. I'm going to bring in some of that really pale light just to bring up the value a little bit. I lost some saturation. I'm going to bring that back. Actually, no. I'm going to bring the saturation up as well. I mean the brightness. And that's pretty much the color that we get reflected back, that gets reflected back to us. But all of this is excessive. And there's going to be a lot of layering of color because there's different extremes of light. So there's more light getting trapped here than there is getting trapped out here. So what do we do with that? The more light you have, the closer you get to the color of the light, so the whites of the light. But you're not going to get a complete white back. You're still going to get a really dimmed version of the light that's really reddened through the skin. Now, here is the age in which we live. We get access to Photoshop, and what happens with subsurface scattering basically is that the object is illuminated, the translucent object is illuminated and saturated. Now, can anyone tell me which tool on Photoshop illuminates and saturates? Let me try to see it. I know Porco. I hope it's find it. Yes. This is what I'm not gonna dodge burn. Yes, it's dodge. It's not burn. Dodge and burn cause this beautiful effect to happen. So let's choose a nice little skin tone that's got some reds in it. I'm going to try to kill two birds with one stone. And let's get some dodge tool. Now, dodge tool is a great tool for subsurface scattering. It is the chosen one for this difficult effect of light. But dodge tool is very unyielding and extremely tricky little motherfucker, and it does not listen very, very well. So let's pretend that this little object here, it's really nondescript, is the object that is having subsurface scattering on it. This is pretty much what happens. We get the illuminated, the hot spot where all the light is trapped. What happens is that you can't just use the dodge tool. You have to use the saturation brush. I'm going to protect vibrance. And I'm saturating along the highlighted area. And then I'm going to get dodge tool back, and in that quote-unquote dark area, it's not really dark, I'm going to bring in some more dodge. And that's really the point. Wherever you thought you had a core shadow, that's where you throw the dodge tool on. And it's dodge tool on highlights as well as dodge tool on, let me see if I can darken it a little bit more so we get a wider margin. Dodge tool on midtones. Okay. So midtones, and I'm going to go to the midtones here, and I'm going to illuminate them. And that is working very smart. This is a beautiful effect that we have here. We don't have to make it as exposed or high exposure as this. This is really, really lots of subsurface scattering on these ears. The light was directly behind it. Look at the detail flood over here. Complete loss of detail. That's how strong that light was. And the cat was white. So there's very little color trapping the light in or reflecting it back. But this effect, this dodge tool, is exactly what I use when I did what I did when I painted this guy. And that's exactly what I'm going to do here. Come on, Porco. You're needed. Right along the area where I assumed that there should have been a shadow. So basically saying the nostril is a hole, right? It's a cave. I always talk about the dark spots as being the dark spots. They have to be dark. But the light is passing through, getting trapped, hovering for a moment and then reflecting back. That's not really how it works, but just for the narrative. And then there's a slight cast shadow because that's where light gets interrupted, and these cast shadows are parallel because the light source is a vanishing point. And that's what we use. That's where the light gets trapped. Wherever there is direct exposure to the sunlight plus translucent object equals subsurface scattering. You guys have to remember that. And that is a sophisticated question for illustrators and for students of art. You have asking yourself, what kind of matter is it? That's an advanced artist's question on themselves. Asking yourself, what kind of material am I drawing? So when we have that combination of light plus translucency, it's pretty much the only time we're ever going to be excused from the rules of light, meaning that core shadow has to be interrupted. So if you're like, okay, Istebrak, I accept the fact that light plus translucent object equals subsurface scattering, but where do I place? So I answered the color question. Now it's the where question. Where do I place subsurface scattering? Where you place it is you just look for the core shadow. This is typically where that core shadow would have hovered, right here along this really, really prominent 90-degree angle here on this bust. That's where the subsurface scattering is visible. It's interrupted at that point because that's the transparency coming through. Core shadow right along here, illuminated. So really, it's, if you think about it on the grayscale level, let's say we're trying subsurface scattering on the grayscale. I usually never do that because it comes hand in hand with color distortion. But if you try it on the grayscale level without any color, you're trying to paint subsurface scattering but minus color. You are basically getting a soft brush and just doing this on all of the core shadows. But you can't just, plop them everywhere. You have to create hotspots. And the hotspots are closer to the light source, so the closest areas to the light source. Hotspots means where the light reaches the most. So any core shadows, I'm not even looking at the piece beside. Any core shadows here, they all reach a hotspot. We see these kinds of subsurface scattering, like the hotspots, especially if the light source is really nearby. If your light source is in the image that's causing this, let's say your character is casting a spell and they're wearing like silk. Silk is at some level translucent. It will have to be a hotspot that responds directly to the placement of the light. Remember, light, if you guys watched any of my videos, you know that light is a vanishing point. And the vanishing point is pretty much where all the cast shadows point to. So that's kind of what guided me around choosing where the light source is and how to keep the shadows parallel with each other. All these cast shadows are parallel with each other. These are all parallel, and that's the light source responding. And then that told me where the hot spots were, where the points of direct exposure were. So the subsurface scattering happened under the ear over here. So it's on top, it's not behind. And that leads me to my next point, which is, where is the light source? So we've asked so many questions today. Where is the light source? Before I critique that, let's make a simple list. First question is your object translucent? Okay, if your object is translucent, what is the color of the object? Okay. What else did I cover? One second, let me look at my notes. Okay. So I'm just trying to keep it organized for you guys. Disney? What? What's this about Disney? Hi, Mute Lava. Why are you sad, Mute Lava? Sorry. The next question is, where is the core shadow? Okay, so that's the what. That's the Who? Just joking. This is the where of subsurface scattering. So this is where it happens on the object, and this is when we diffuse it. And then the final question was, I'm sorry, I'm really forgetful. It's terrible. Where is the object relative to the light? So where is the light? Sorry about my writing. You guys should be writing this in a really, really neat way. Where is the light? So what's the object? Is the object translucent? What's the color of the object? Where is the object relative to the light source? Is it behind the light source? Is it in front of the light source? If it's behind, you'll get a much better effect of subsurface scattering, because at that point you're seeing the light penetrate right through. It's not where you are relative to the light. It's where the light is relative to the object, because the light has to be in a position where the rays are passing through this transparent, translucent object. So some of the light passes through it. It doesn't always just hover there and then reflect back. Some of the light goes right through like a gamma ray, but it's not a gamma ray, it's not radiation. So all those questions are pretty much what answer your question about subsurface scattering. Translucency plus the color of the light source plus the color of the object that is translucent plus where the object is plus where the core shadows are, all equals to a successful drawing of, or a successful rendition of subsurface scattering. Okay? So let's jump on to our critique now. And let's ask ourselves some questions. When we do something as crazy as subsurface scattering in our drawing, it's always good to pick up a reference. So icebergs, subsurface scattering would be my first go-to search description. And that's pretty much what I'll have beside me when I'm trying to figure out how light works on ice. And one second, please. And what happens when light is behind, see the light is behind this iceberg causing the subsurface scattering to happen, but the iceberg isn't that transparent. So what happens is that it's not complete subsurface scattering as in what we see with an ear or cartilage. So what we see here is really close to what we see here. He seems like he is a Yeti, and he has ice magic or something. So that is going to be a very, very similar matter, or with very, very similar material. And one of the first questions that we ask about subsurface scattering rendering is, what is the material? What is it translucent? Is the object translucent? If you answer that question and say, yes, the object is translucent, yes, the object is see-through, that's when you go on to the next level and say, what kind of translucent is it? Is it water? Is it a cartilage? Is it ice? Is it fabric? Is it hair? Hair is also translucent, or behaves in translucency because it's like a weave or fabric that is woven together. It's not really the hair itself that's translucent, but it's patterned with the other hairs that causes light to come through and shine. So subsurface scattering on hair. Let me just show you that effect real quick. I search a lot of videos or photos because I kind of want you guys to see where it happens in real life. And I hate that it's all modeling stuff. I need a photo. Hair in the light. Come on. I know. Hair and sunlight. There we go. Right here. The subsurface scattering isn't there. It's right here. But it's not because hair is translucent. It's the behavior of hair. How hair is behaving as a whole. As one large object. The subsurface scattering is right there. That point of saturation where the light is kind of trapped in between all the hairs, reflecting back and forth in the deep net of the hairs. That's where it happens. So that's when you know you have to start saturating and illuminating, meaning the dodge tool. That's when you go to the dodge tool. So let's see where this happens in this image, because as soon as I looked at this image, I realized that's where, that's what was missing. It was an environment. And light environment, whenever I talk about light environments, I always really refer to how light is behaving with everything. How it behaves with the water, how it behaves with in a consistency. So it feels like the light is coming from one source, the sunlight, as the dominant light source, giving everything its own characteristic, but everything always goes back to the light. and the light's position, and that's how you create a light environment, an environment that is completely ruled by the light source. So let's begin. The light is behind him. This is a really, really awesome opportunity to mess around with some subsurface scattering. I always love light behind an object. They use this exact composition for the Brahms splash, I think, for League. One of my favorite splashes. I really love the way they painted that. The first thing I'm going to do is establish some core shadows. I'm going to use Burn Tool on midtones because I'm running out of time. And I'm going to just darken the object here, the main object. I'm going to darken him just a little bit. He needs to be a little darker. The light is directly behind him. It's okay because we're going to interrupt this darkness in a little. Okay. So I'm just darkening this up. It's okay, it's a bit too dark. I'm going to use the brush so I can erase it later. Sorry, Photoshop is weird. Darken this area. This area should not be that light. The light is right behind him, so there's going to be some cast shadows right along here. And this is what I mean by light environment. We're creating a behavior with the light source. And cast shadows are one of the first areas the first tools that we prove the light source's presence in an image. So there's that cast shadow. Always darken cast shadows the closer you get to the object. The closer they get to the object casting them. And then diffuse that shadow. Okay. And then considering that there might be light in front of him, or else it would be a completely dark silhouette, I know that there's some light in front of him. I'm going to illuminate and erase away that shadow layer that I added, only in the places I know the light will reach. And I'll get to the subsurface scattering in a second. I'm just doing a collective critique. Some areas on the hair, shines, sorts. Material that is reflective has a very different behavior with the core light, so that needs to be reflective, as well as that end here. Correct the color. One thing that Dodge Tool does a lot is that it discolors, changes the color completely. So beware of Dodge Tool. I am giving you the green light to use Dodge Tool in your subsurface scattering renditions, but I'm not saying that is that's the tool that you have to depend on. It's a very dangerous tool, and you have to be very, very careful with it. It will make your images look really cheesy and really, really cheap. That's its effect. If you use it wrong, it destroys your image. It's like if you shade with Dodge Tool and Burn Tool, you're not going to get an image that reads. This hair is going to reflect on the side of this shoulder pad, so we're going to get some of it illuminated. Just along here. In this area. This is the dark section, so it's not going to have that much. And I'm just going to diffuse this. See how bright it was? And I'll erase some of the core stuff in a second, but I just need to sharpen this edge right here. Alright, so let's erase only where we know we need it. Areas of direct exposure to that light that is revealing him. The top part of his chest. Beautiful core shadow on the pecs, by the way. The extremes of any anatomy or any bulges. Only the very, very tips or the furthest tips or the furthest protrusion of the knee will have shadows or lights, and then we'll just have a shadow directly after that because it's a direct angle. But you had the same light here and here, making the knee look a little flat. Okay, and then I'll get to the subsurface scattering in a second. And then the heights, the furthest peak of every finger gets some light. And I'll clean this up. So any questions so far about any of the stuff that I listed? It's been a while since I really talked about subsurface scattering and paintings and critiques, so I hope we're getting a lot out of this. Okay, so we did that. Feels much more appropriate. Because the light is so strong, the background now has to be changed, so we're slowly starting to achieve a light environment. The background has to be a little bit lighter. I know you're trying to close off the canvas, but what it's done is that it's confused the light source as behaving in an inconsistent way. It's like we have daytime, or kind of like close to sunset in the tundra, highlights happening and revealing the form, but then we have nighttime type clouds in the distance, and stormy clouds really don't block the sun out that much. So we need to illuminate that a little bit. To illuminate this area so that he can really stand out, proving that the sunlight really is behind him, causing this extreme silhouette. Ended up just taking a photo of my hair in candlelight. Oh, okay. If I did, I would probably light my hair on fire because you're a giraffe. Yes, I can barely reach my hair. Okay. No questions from you guys. So now that I've made the environment brighter, I can now make some subsurface scattering happen and have it make sense, because before it was a little bit dark for subsurface scattering to have happened on an extreme level, in the same extreme level that happened on the object, causing it to be object A, which is the Yeti, causing it to be in such a silhouette. The light, as you have indicated, is directly behind him. And then for the fun stuff, fun stuff is coming up. So actually, not just yet. I need to make this area bright enough that it seems like the light really is casting a shadow on him. Okay. And this whole corner is too dark. What I recommend you do is bring in some texture. I would probably do something like that. The light is strong enough. There's enough light to go around that this would not have reached a point where it was that black. Or you were thinking about, I just think this whole rock placement is completely off. But you were thinking about the light environment as having been dark, but you just placed the character in that you wanted to be visible. So you can't really make a character visible if it's going to be a nighttime scene. So start teaching yourself some daytime scenes. And then one last thing, I'm so sorry, before I jump into the subsurface scattering fun stuff, I'm just going to edge this area out because it's just too foggy. I feel like this area should be an edge. Okay. Just going to clean that up real quick. Alright. It's a little soft because of the brush I chose. So here's what happens next. Sorry, 1 second. I know, I suck. 1 second. I have to make this not fuzzy or else it'll read really off. It'll look like he's made of like plush Yeti. Everything has too much of a halo around it right now. And that's what happens when I don't get like PSDs with perfect lassos, that I can use perfect lassos. As you know, my form studies, I always use perfect lassos on those because you can't take any risks with edges. A lot of the texture of an object is invested in the edge. So if you don't want an object to look like it's constantly glowing like a beautiful little Hollywood light from it, you have to really sharpen out these edges. That's why I take so much time on the edges. It really does the rendering for you as well. You'd think that you had to go in there and shrink your brush and draw more tiny little hairs. Really all you had to do was just make the edge clean and that texture would have worked. So as I promised, the fun stuff. What we do when we create subsurface scattering is we have to create the distortion first, the actual presence of the light on that edge. And we do a little something like that. You see that beautiful thing? That's the actual light ray distorting, either it's your eyes or a camera coming through and showing that, hey, I'm the light and I'm really strong at this point in time. And show me off. Alright, so that's next. So this is the color of the light source that I chose and that you chose right up here. I'm going to move it down to a yellow. And I'm going to throw a larger emanation of it. And then erase again. You see I'm erasing constantly. I don't want the light to be dense. I don't want it to feel dense. I want it to feel transparent. So I'm erasing and adding back. I'm adding back with a smaller brush so you can really show off the hot spot. And now is where we bring in this, the subsurface scattering, the star of the show. I'm going to bring in my dodge tool on highlights. You actually have this pink, which is really nice. I really like that pink, but I think I'm going to have to correct it. But here's the fun stuff. Anywhere where there's a coarse shadow, that's where we throw that sexy, sexy subsurface scattering. Look at that. So we answered the question, where's the coarse shadow? Right here. But, and it's a big but, where is the cast shadow of this guy on the iceberg? So you can't just go around to every single coarse shadow and throw in a subsurface scattering. You have to find where the object is not getting any light on it. So this isn't the proper color, because what happens if the object, everyone answer my question, if the object's core color is blue and the light source is yellow, what happens to that color? What is the color of the subsurface scattering going to be? Where do I stop? Iste, would you give us some lens flare at the end? Green, yes, greenish blue, not green, but like an aqua green or like a blue green or a turquoise. That's the color that we see in icebergs and water when the light hits it. Subsurface scattering happens in real life. It's always some level of green, not this. It's more of like a dirty iceberg color. And we see that perfect green happen. Light on waves, water. Let me show you where that happened. No, what is this? This beautiful color right here. That's subsurface scattering. Changing the color. Right here as well. Beautiful yellow light, blue sky reflecting on the transparent water, and then the color of the blue in the water reflecting and merging with the color of the light source, creating that aqua color. It's delicious. Plus there's a lot of greens in the water as well that add to that green and make it so saturated. Algae and I think it's algae and seaweed and all kinds of stuff in the water as well. But painting subsurface. Boat. Come on, boat. I saw you earlier. I found you. You elusive boat. That's the most beautiful wave I have ever seen. Downloads. Let me see if I can find it. Pictures of cats. Spectrum properties. There we go. Right? This one? I can't find it. I wish I could, and I could show you guys the beautiful way it was painted. But yes, this is the color that we get. It's going to be really close to blue, but it's going to be greenish. I went into a color mode layer, and I'm just going to, whoopsie, what happened? I'm just going to throw that color over top. No, it needs to be this high saturation. Yeah, you need to go really, really bright for this to work. And I'm going to throw it right over anywhere where I know there's subsurface scattering happening. And look at that gorgeousness. And it's a lot of it happens on the core shadows as well, so we have to diffuse the core shadows. And then I'm going to get a soft brush on really low, and I'm just going to run it over. Just like this. So remember that big butt that I was talking about? That's pretty much what we need to look for at this point, is where the Yeti stands in the way of the light, not allowing that color to come through. We need to bring in some of that color back, and I'll show you in a sec. So the hammer also gets this effect on it, by the way. I'm going to get the dodge tool and mess around here. Remember, dodge tool isn't going to do it all for you. You have to make sure that you're thinking about the object's material, how it reacts with the light, how it behaves, which extremities, like these edges that I'm causing to be, like that I'm making a little bit more bright. This is how the ice reacts to the light, or how the ice, the texture behaves, and then how light behaves with that texture. Okay, takes some work. It's not an instant thing, but that's pretty much the technique in the process. The technique of it all is really in mastering the color combination and making sure you have good control over the dodge tool. So as soon as I started dodging, that's where I'm going back, and that's where I'm going to be erasing some stuff. So you see this area, we have subsurface scattering, go. This is good. But there are areas where we had cast shadows. So where are these areas? The Yeti stands in the way of the light in a very, very specific way. So his arm is right behind it, so that's where we throw that cast shadow. And that's where that subsurface scattering is limited to, here and here, because the light isn't coming anywhere near the iceberg beneath this cast shadow. What about his right arm? Shouldn't it stop the light from falling onto the shield? The right arm? The leg, yeah. Fergus had the leg right. This is by Fergus, by the way. He's a regular in this class. So this is where the right arm or the left arm? That's the right arm, that's the left arm. Not our right, his right. Always refer to his right. Alright, so before, after. Light environment, no light environment with the shield anyway. And look at that beautiful comparison of material now. We have this amazing comparison of material. We have the density of his fur, the texture of his fur in the wind, and then we have the solidity of the iceberg, but the delicate color of the iceberg and its transparency. I think it's a beautiful painting. I think the composition is a little bit affected as a whole. I think we need to either choose a lengthy, like a long canvas that represents his lengthy stance. So he's a very big guy, so we would want to draw in a canvas that promotes his largeness or length. And then if it's supposed to be like a landscape driven thing, like he is his character in his landscape, in his environment or his habitat, we want to have a wide angle. That would be much more beneficial. So let's do the same thing with the iceberg of the thingamajig, the axe, the hammer. And we can't just do that, we have to bring in the color that the light causes. Oops, needs to be really saturated or else color mode won't read it. And that beautiful green. and then run dodge tool along the edges. Dodge tool is very scary. Be careful. I'm always bringing down the exposure. Always. It's a very scary, dangerous little tool. And dodge tool is like it's like letting light corrupt the color and the form. It's really allowing yourself, it's allowing you to destroy your painting. So you're destroying all the form. I mean, we're diffusing core shadows and we're overexposing. So all of that is really scary stuff. You can't just do that stuff willy-nilly. You have to have a good reason. And I barely use dodge tool because it creates that cheap feeling if you overuse it, and you want to use it only where you know you have a need for that effect, that specific effect that dodge tool creates. So be very, very careful with it. Okay, there is very little subsurface scattering happening on the base or on the other side of that axe. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a cast shadow where the axe stands in the way of its own subsurface scattering. So it would be this kind of line. And then after that, everything is illuminated. Because the light kind of comes through this way. Just like that on the very extremities. Remember, an object may not be, maybe a very dense object, like the human body isn't a translucent object. But the human body against the sunlight directly, where the sun is right behind that person, silhouette, subsurface scattering. The human body's extremities, like the thighs or the arms, can behave as if it is translucent. Every time I search up subsurface scattering, I always come up with modeling program plugins and stuff. This is pretty much what I mean. This on a larger scale. When it comes to the human body, let's say this human body is standing in front of the light, we would get this kind of effect on the extremities, and the inner bits would be the darkest spots. Okay, so let me just bring in that green color, really saturated blue-green. Remember, if you're trying to decide which color your object is going to be after the light has passed through it, remember that the core color of the object, not the light, is what's going to dominate that color equation. Merge down, merge down. The cast shadow is there, merge down. And then I'm just going to interrupt this light. And his fur also is going to get some subsurface scattering on it. But it's very dangerous to use subsurface scatter, like the dodge tool on fur, subsurface scattering. It's a very tricky little tool. See, it doesn't always give you the best, especially because like everyone paints differently and they layer their colors differently. It's not that helpful. Yeah, we're getting that nasty burn on the edges. I don't like that. Give me a sec. Let me experiment. I don't know. I'm gonna shrink this, increase the exposure, and then kind of distort the edge of the hair. Maybe that'll... No. I'm not convinced. Dodge tool. Okay. Next step is the sponge tool. What does the sponge tool do? Well, depending on where the hot spots are, we have saturation lines. There's a saturation line along this edge. Remember when we desaturated, we didn't want it to look that blue. And then there's a desaturation line on this edge. Whenever we have a cast shadow, we have a desaturation line. Because the cast shadow has an edge around it that is fuzzy. And that lets some light through, but it doesn't let the light through in completely. And what that does is that it lets a color that is a little bit darker than the highlight come through, and that's the saturation line. It's not really saturation, it's just a color that's darker than the light source. But we see it as a point of saturation. This cast shadow is a little bit too strong. As a whole, composition-wise, I already talked about the canvas. I do recommend you change the color like the color wash. You seem to have a constant problem with that. So I recommend you look up some good references on environment, making sure you have a consistent environment in your paintings. I'm going to bring in some of that blue into the rest of the painting because you have patches of green, and then you have patches of navy, and then you have patches of gray. So I'm just going to bring in that blue over everything because we need to start off with a wash. And then after I bring in that blue, anywhere where the light touches is going to be warm. I'm going to use soft light for this. And now you have that beautiful clash between warm and cool. So I'm going to bring in that warm over here, and this little bit there's going to be a little bit of light coming through. Not as much as this, because this is where the sun actually is, so everything is going to be a grade less. A little bit of warm here. Flatten the image. And then I'm going to bring that frame from before, and I'll show you guys the complete before and after so you guys can see. Not too dark, I don't want it to look like it's nighttime. So you guys can see the amazing effect of subsurface scattering on light environments. Before, after. Before, kind of everything felt flat, like it felt like it was a game, but a game with subsurface scattering turned off. Like, no duh, that's what we did. But after. And where this is done, where my favorite paintings where it's done, is the Brahm's shield from League of Legends isn't made of ice, but it uses this exact kind of composition. They want to make him feel big, so they put the camera under him. Beautiful, beautiful composition, wide, so that they can show where he's from. That's his habitat. He's from the Freljord or whatever. I wish I could just get one without all that hocus pocus. And you got the warm versus the cool. The wash is cool. You brought in the pinks that this guy has as well, which is nice. There isn't much subsurface scattering. There's a little bit here, which is nice as well, but the light was there. It should have been somewhere around the rim. Where we do have subsurface scattering on a league splash is the fiddlesticks, risen fiddlesticks. Oh my god, whoever painted that is a master. Look at that. Oh, that's so delicious. Oh, come on, give me a decent one. Look at that subsurface scattering. It's so pretty. It's such a glamorous little thing. Oh, this one. See that? The light is behind, subsurface scattering, the object is green or made of jade, and then the light plus that creates a yellowish green. There's a little bit of subsurface scattering on clothing. Metallics are too dense, atomically structured. They're too dense to have subsurface scattering, but they do have the specular. The specular is that thing that was referred to here, or in that diagram I showed you with the shiny jade bust. And yeah, this is another one of those instances. The reason why I'm always referring to League of Legends is because I play it and I see those splashes, and I'm always like trying to break down how they painted it, because I really respect those artists. They're amazing. They have so much to work with, and they really don't fuck around. So let's see if anyone has any questions. Can anyone summarize everything that I covered today in like a couple sentences? Because I did write down a list. I did make that part easy. This is why I write the list down, so that you guys can summarize it for me. Gotcha, Santa. What? Green, maybe because of chlorine. Yeah, she did the cast shadow one moment after my question. Sorry, Senna. Object transparent. Light does the scatter. Good. Don't know why, but PTTV modes are not working. Guys, focus. Focus. Who can summarize everything that we talked about today? This image here demonstrates what? What is the before and after? What is the core lesson today? What has it done for this concept? I made a character after a face shading vid I saw that you made. Want to see it? Sure, Tybrontosaurus. Please show me. I feel like I'm at school. For subsurface scattering, you need to ask questions like, what is the object? What is the color? Where is the light source? Excellent. Subsurface scattering gives painting depths and makes them really smexy. Yes, cute giraffe. Anything else? Anything of that really important bit about, and I'm not going to say it. Light doesn't interact just around the object, but also within the object. So the transparency of the object allows the light to come in and then reflect back out. Or make the light go completely through the object if it's transparent. And it's about finding the color of the light source and the color of the object. Now, I know this stuff. I want to know that you guys know this stuff, so write it back to me. And for those on YouTube who want to get on my ass about talking to myself, because there's people on YouTube who watch YouTube and say, why is she asking herself questions? Why is she talking to herself? I'm on a live stream, okay? I'm talking to actual people. I'm in an actual live class. Please join us someday. Yes, you get a gold star, assassin. Turquoise is delicious. If the object is transparent, there is subsurface scattering. Find color of object and light. Where is the core shadow and light direction? Yes, so finding the core shadow is where you diffuse, where you really bring in the subsurface scattering. By diffusing the core shadow, the light comes and starts emanating and glowing through the object. And what that does is it diffuses any core shadows in there. So diffuse means just make it lighter. Just makes the core shadow lighter. Yes, you're all little demons in my head. Apply dodge plus sponge in core areas and cast shadows. Excellent. What is the best exposure level to use to use dodge tool in? To use dodge tool. Is it good to use dodge tool on 50%? To something you've been painting for 8 hours? No. Lenouise, 15 to 25% is too strong, especially for people who haven't used it yet. 24% is what I used last, but I guess I was trying to rush it. 24% is too high. It's way too high. I usually use 8%. Anything less than 10% is good. 10% is good. Less than 10% is just going to be there for 5 hours. You want to get that immediate burn as well, but 10% is a really, really good range. Yeah. Very nice, Vinceven. He keeps his dodge at 5 to 8%, 2 to 5% when I use it. Very, very good numbers. Not really, really high, because when we use really, really high dodge tool, it gives us such a small margin for correction, and it's too strong. Who is that face on Twitch? That trolley face, that smiley trolley face you just want to punch. So how about the SSS and monkey's fur? Why specifically a monkey? It's the same thing. Remember that hair isn't transparent or translucent. It's a little bit translucent, but not detectable. What happens is that the hair becomes overwhelmed by the light and fly out hairs. Hairs that fly out are just dominated by the light source, and they have light travel along their surface, but they don't change color or transparent. People with brown hair, if the light is behind them, their hair can look like it's gold. They can look like it's blonde, but that hair didn't change color and it didn't change density. It's just the light overwhelming the hair. Yes, I'm talking about that. So when it comes to hair and subsurface scattering, the point I'm trying to make is that hair is not translucent enough for subsurface scattering, but it does behave as a whole. If a head of hair had light shine on it, that head of hair would behave like a translucent object because of all the little nooks and crannies the light can travel to in between the hairs. Any other questions before I share some links? One more before and after. after. I'm just going to run the filter over it, sharpen, unsharp mask, just so we get those details back. So use the soft brush a lot. Yes. Whoa, no, flatten. Actually, you know what I'll do? Because for the demonstration, I need to make them beside each other. There we go. Okay. So let me see if anyone asked any questions. Would the edge on the bottom of the loincloth thing have light shining on it, or is it the leg blocking it? Let me open it again. Yes, there would be light on that. Very good observation. The leg isn't really blocking it enough. So we get the color, the dominant color of the wash. Then we get the highlighter color of the cloth. And then we get the light. I'm just going to use dodge tool to speed this up. The dodge tool on the hottest part. And then depending on how see-through this is, so I'm sure he's not wearing like completely see-through, so some of the light comes through like this. And it might be a sharp cast shadow, really depending on how strong you want the light to feel. Just like that. And it might be on a much lower level as well because of the angle. But yes. No, I'm not going to say that. There wouldn't be some rim light on the Yeti's fur? Yes, there would, but I just didn't have any time to cover it. But of course, there would be lots of rim light on the Yeti's fur. However, you cannot have rim light in a silhouette. A silhouette is very different from a silhouette. No. A silhouette is... Damn it. Images. A silhouette is a complete shadow of the object. It has very little chance for rim light. Rim light happens when the object is beside the light source. So the light has to be a little bit, not directly behind the object. So images. Rim light happens in a very specific placement of the secondary or primary light source. This is a form of subsurface scattering in a cast shadow. This is completely dark, but the light is just traveling along anything that is transparent. And this is a really, really good example of where subsurface scattering happens in hair. But because the room was light and not completely dark as this, we wouldn't have this happen in that environment. It would be something like this. Like this girl's hair. If the light was right beside the Yeti, we would have this. But because it's right behind him, we really wouldn't have something that strong. But I didn't have time to do this kind of effect. Just a soft light behind it. Something like this for the fur. But because the background behind him was already so light, that's really the only reason why we're not having that much rim light. Because if we did, it would just be hidden behind this massive sun behind him. Because he's kind of in a complete silhouette, just like we saw in those beach images. Good question. I forgot the lens flare. Oh no. Let's see if I have my lens flare. I don't have that file anymore. I'm sorry. I think I threw it away. I had a bunch of lens flares. Stocks. Oh, there they are. Yes. Okay. Rasterize. There. And screen. There you go. There's your lens flare. Michael Bay would be proud. Let me try another one. Let me layer them. Flip horizontal. Beautiful. Screen. Yes. Thanks. Bye-bye, guys. Oh, I need to do a proper bye-bye for YouTube. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like and damn it. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Have a great day. Bye-bye.